Nuclear power, a force capable of lighting cities or destroying them. For decades, humanity has walked a thin line between progress and catastrophe, and when safety failed, the results were devastating. Invisible radiation, abandoned cities, and lives changed forever. Tonight, we revisit the darkest chapters in the history of nuclear power. Disasters that shocked the world, claimed lives, and reshaped the future of energy. These are the most tragic nuclear power plant accidents in history. 1. Kyshtym disaster, the forgotten tragedy. 1957, Soviet Union. The Cold War was a time of secrecy, ambition, and risk. In the Soviet Union, nuclear research was shrouded in mystery, hidden from the outside world, and often from its own citizens. At the Mayak production plant in the Ural Mountains, workers were racing to produce weapons-grade plutonium, but safety was sacrificed for speed. On September 29, 1957, a cooling system failed in one of the waste storage tanks. Without cooling, heat built up, until the tank exploded with the force of 70 tons of TNT. The blast released a deadly cloud of radioactive particles, contaminating thousands of square kilometers. Villages were evacuated, but many residents were never told why. They abandoned their homes, their livestock, their entire way of life, leaving behind a poisoned land. Thousands would suffer the long-term health effects. Yet the Soviet government denied the disaster for decades, keeping it hidden from the world until the 1980s. Kyshtym remains a tragic example of how secrecy can turn disaster into catastrophe. 2. 3 Mile Island, America's Wake-Up Call, 1979 USA. By the late 1970s, nuclear energy was booming in the United States. Promised as a clean, modern solution to the energy crisis, dozens of nuclear plants were being built across the country. But on March 28, 1979, that optimism was shaken to its core. At the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania, a combination of equipment malfunctions and human error triggered a partial meltdown. Alarms blared as operators scrambled to understand what was happening. Confusing readings, miscommunication, and a lack of training made matters worse. Radioactive gases escaped, and fear spread quickly. The public reaction was immediate. Tens of thousands of nearby residents fled their homes in panic. News outlets covered the event nonstop, showing scenes of anxious families and empty streets. Though the containment structure ultimately held, preventing large-scale radiation release, the damage was already done. Trust in nuclear energy collapsed overnight. The accident halted new nuclear construction in the U.S. for decades, proving that sometimes perception itself can be as devastating as reality. 3. Chernobyl, the world holds its breath. 1986, USSR/Ukraine. Just 7 years later, the world would witness a disaster on a scale never before imagined. On April 26, 1986, in Soviet Ukraine, engineers at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant prepared for a routine safety test. But in the early morning hours, a cascade of errors spiraled out of control. Reactor 4 exploded with such force that the roof of the plant was torn apart. A glowing fire raged in the open core, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere. Firefighters rushed in, unaware that they were stepping into a death zone. They carried no protective gear, only water hoses and courage. Many would be dead within weeks, their bodies so radioactive that they had to be buried in sealed coffins. The nearby city of Pripyat, home to 50,000 people, was evacuated within 36 hours. Families left behind toys, photographs, and everyday life, never to return. In the weeks that followed, radioactive fallout spread across Europe. Detected as far away as Sweden, the Soviet Union tried to contain the truth, but the world soon knew. The long-term toll was devastating. Thousands exposed to cancer-causing radiation, entire regions uninhabitable for centuries, and a symbol of government denial that shook global trust. Chernobyl was more than a disaster. It became a warning etched into human history. Fukushima Daiichi, nature's deadly chain reaction. 2011 Japan. On March 11, 2011, Japan was struck by one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded, a magnitude 9.0 that unleashed a massive tsunami. Walls of water, some over 40 feet high, slammed into coastal towns and cities, sweeping away homes, cars, and lives. But the disaster did not end there. At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the tsunami disabled backup generators needed to cool the reactors. Within hours, 3 reactors melted down. Explosions rocked the facility, sending plumes of radioactive steam into the sky. Helicopters hovered overhead, dumping water from the air in desperate attempts to contain the crisis. Over 150,000 people were forced to evacuate, many leaving behind communities they had lived in for generations. Unlike Chernobyl, Fukushima did not claim lives immediately from radiation. But its long shadow continues. Contaminated soil, polluted waters, and the displacement of entire towns left scars that remain today. It was a sobering reminder that nature, not just human error, can unleash nuclear catastrophe. Conclusion: Kyshtym, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. 4 names that echo with tragedy. Each revealed a different weakness: secrecy, human error, flawed design, and the unpredictability of nature. Together, they remind us that nuclear power, while powerful, is never without risk. Yet from every tragedy came change. New safety regulations, international cooperation, more cautious oversight. The lessons paid for in human lives are now etched into policy and science. But as long as nuclear power exists, so too does the possibility of another disaster. These stories remind us, progress always comes with a price, and the cost of forgetting history is too high to pay.